6:33, 4. First item on the agenda is to consider a motion to go into executive session. And to acknowledge premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or us at a substantial disadvantage. The purpose for going into the meeting is attorney-client communication. So I'll need a motion under 1 VSA 313A1.
So moved. I'll make that motion.
And I'll need a second. Okay. And we will include in the executive session Alex, Dave Rue from Stitzel, Page, and Fletcher, and Renee. And at this point, there's no expectation we would take any actions. If we were, we'd come out of executive session to take those actions, and expect it to be about 30 minutes.
Can you spell your last name for me, please?
R-U-G-H.
Thank you.
Sound good? All right. We open the meeting. Oh, yeah.
I'll second for you.
So it's a motion to come out of executive session. A second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we're out of executive session. We called the meeting to order at 6:30, and we went into executive session. We're in there for about an hour, meeting with Alex, Renee, and Dave Rue from Stitzel, Page, and Fletcher, discussing two items. Discussion about Hannaford's ongoing litigation. It moves back to the environmental court. And we had discussions about the traffic issue. And then we had questions about the Planning Commission's proposed interim zoning, and so we asked some questions about that. And I don't believe we'll take any actions at this time. Concerning the interim zoning, it looks like maybe the first meeting in February, we'll have a discussion about it among the board. Not make any decisions at that meeting, but discuss on what actions the select board might take. Does that sound like I've captured the... Okay. Next item on the agenda, additions, deletions, or any changes to the agenda for tonight? And any...
Might want to mention that Tom.
Okay, yes. And public comment, so there's none. Tom Ayers did attend the executive session, but for not feeling well, decided he was going to go home and miss the rest of the meeting.
Watch it on television.
Watch it on TV.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is the potential to open bids. We had an RFP out for temporary fast trash recycling services to take the place of the drop-off center that's temporarily closed. And I don't know if we got any.
Let me just double check on that.
Okay. Just checking to make sure we haven't got any last-minute bids.
We do this kind of thing on game shows. Where you check,
Yeah. So we received no bids, unfortunately. And I think we'll decide what actions we might take, whether we change the RFP, put it back out, or decide maybe we can contact a few people and ask why,
Did
what.
we? Did we think that we were gonna get one from somebody, I thought? Or,
There was
I
certainly
talked to a
interest.
few of them, few of the people, and
that's what I thought.
they said, you know, we're not sure, but please send it to us.
Oh,
So,
I see.
yeah.
Oh, that's a little different than what I thought.
Well, we had gotten a proposal from someone else, but, we felt it was important that
Sure.
it would give an opportunity to other haulers, that we not just contract with one hauler.
Yeah.
So we
And so,
can,
and so do we have that offer formally?
no,
No.
So we'll look at it.
Yeah.
And I think the desire is to provide some service for townspeople so they don't have to travel themselves or contract other services during this time period without
right.
the drop-off center we're so used to. Next item on the agenda is a review of the fiscal year 19 capital budget and capital budget improvement plan, and there was a spreadsheet in our packet. And this is a public hearing. And it's a required public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to mention that, or is that good enough?
Computer to work.
Oh.
Yes, this was a public hearing to look at the capital plan and capital improvement plan each year as we make adjustments. It's just a process that we go through. At this time, it just has the board. You have the public hearing, take comments, and then you guys approve it at the end. If there's any changes that need to be made, we make them at that time. Again, just a reminder, we didn't do an overhaul of the capital budget. This was just really keeping most things the same, making some adjustments as needed, and then with the idea that after the budget process finalizes this year, then we start, really start thinking about the capital budget and how we plan for bigger projects and maybe doing it in a more incremental way rather than larger increases per year.
So we have it in front of us. There's an outline. No, I guess.
Technical difficulties. On the 100th time I press this, it'll open up. Unless we hook up one of your computers, because you guys have the same
I
information.
don't have one of those plugs.
Oh, you don't?
I need an adapter if I was to do that.
It's-
Here, let's try something. Try it now.
Oops. See, it's just moving on its own. It's not.
Still no?
No, it's not reacting.
Where is your? There it is. Do you have a mouse you can plug in?
I
or does it
do. I've
not
tried that,
work?
and that's not working either.
It's almost as if your
Maybe try.
touchpad isn't
Yeah,
working.
and then-
Just a reboot does it all.
yeah, maybe a reboot and just.
If you can get the mouse to do the reboot.
Well, it's funny. It's work. The mouse is working, but it's not recognizing
Right,
the
it
clicks.
won't do the clicks.
And it doesn't work this way either.
Well,
That time.
always something new each meeting,
Didn't like the fact you abandoned it for so long.
apparently.
Okay, which one are you trying to get?
Second one up.
This
yeah,
one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not having any better luck. You definitely have a problem with your touchpad.
Which it was
So you,
fine just a little bit ago, but
so you need the mouse.
the mouse isn't operating either.
Do you have it?
Kind of.
Well,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
all
There
right.
we go.
Okay. We might be
Just
back in
gotta
business.
Give it the screen.
All right, so I think it's this one. Okay.
You've got to turn the.
Oh, yeah. All right.
No chance the Russians did that. Huh?
Don't start something.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right, so, yeah.
So I can go through this.
Yeah, maybe go through it briefly, and I have just a couple questions that,
So on the front page is the FY19 capital transfer expenditure summary. So these would be all the capital transfers that are proposed for FY19 listed out here by department. And if you look in the, the blue column up there, which this isn't. There we go. So the blue column are the transfers proposed. If you see something like this 5,000 in capital reserves, that means we have reserves that we're applying towards the total. And see if this will work. If you go far over to the right, it shows what the total amount is, including the transfer from the general fund, which is in the blue, and if there's any capital reserves used.
so those are reserves we already have sitting there
Yeah, that were already sitting.
from previous years.
Right. And then if you go down to the bottom, in the left-hand corner, it shows, sorry, my mouse just is not operating properly. Bottom left-hand corner shows the department totals that will be the transfer from the general fund. So once we look at the actual general fund budget and you look at the bottom of each department, the ones that have capital transfer item, that will match up with what's listed there. So highway, if you go over to the general fund, you'll notice that that lines up the 450,964.56
Total by department.
total by department.
And in some cases, the capital qualifies for capital because it's over a certain threshold. It's not necessarily, in some cases, saved every year.
Right.
So we typically, that first item from Shelburne, the paving, 250,000 is what we try to do every year. And in this case, coming from the general budget, is 250,000.
Right. Sometimes we have some reserves to apply to that. We do not have any reserves left to apply to it. So it's the full 250,000 to stay on the schedule that you targeted to keep with the paving plan.
So in theory, on some year where we might not be having a very big increase in our operating budget, or we had a lot of things paid, we might actually want to, I think I'm asking this as a question. We might say we want to have $300,000 for a paving for paving, and we would put 50,000 in the reserve and use 250,000 for the actual project. So that's what we're working towards, is trying to be putting stuff so we have something in those reserves whenever we can.
I think what happened this year is because we'd gotten off schedule, we'd taken, we reduced our paving
Right.
in past years, so it took a while to get up. So he was able, because we got a lower bid on the paving costs, he was able to do a few more of the roads to catch up.
So we used it, right?
so we used
But
that
in
money.
general, the purpose of this capital is that we really do want to be building up the reserves. But we only do that when we think when we're capable of it, and it's not
Right.
going to raise enough taxes. But
Right. Right.
that's the purpose of it.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's interesting to note down at the bottom right there, if I can get you to look at it, it does sort of say, so this year we're at 601,000 toward capital. Some of it saved from previous years, a small amount, most of it raised this year. Next year, we're estimated at 650, so it continues to go up, and we could see this was happening last year. I mean, we could predict this over the last couple of years because we've had some big capital improvement projects that have driven that cost up a little bit, and it will continue to go up, we expect, next year too.
And one of the things in this year's under the capital budget, we had several vehicles. So we had a dump truck that failed early. In fact, it spent most of its time out of service, but didn't apply to any sort of limit law or anything. And so we ended up replacing it a year earlier than it had been projected out in our capital improvement plan. We also had put off replacing the loader, I believe, in a previous years to gain some savings in that year. And so then that also came on in the same year the other vehicles were placed. So there was a lot of vehicles that unfortunately came in within 1 year for a variety of reasons.
So unless there's questions on the first page, we can go to the next one, the second page. I had a question, and, well, that one there, I don't know if you want to just explain that.
Yeah, so this one is a chart that I'm going to keep working on. There's a little bit of information that's on here that needs to be updated, and so this will look a little different. I think I'll have some more information just so it's clearer. My understanding is that's a question that came up at town meeting last year, is whether total debt service was. So I'd like to make this actually a little more clear and understood so that people can see what the debt service is. And if you notice, I mean, this graph really does demonstrate that we're at the high years right now. It will go down, but then obviously, so that's when you can kind of think about what other types of debt that we're going to be having in the future and where it makes sense.
If we continue to borrow for police vehicles
Right.
or highway trucks or
Yeah.
pickup trucks, and then that, you know, that red area may continue down the line.
Right. So by state statute, it's noted there that a town can borrow an amount not greater than the equivalent of 10 times its grand list. That would be a substantial amount.
Yeah.
I don't think we want to
$30
ever
million?
get close
Yeah.
to that,
No.
but
So, yeah.
So, I mean, we could, as the debt service goes down, that's where we could then be adding
really
money
be thinking
here
about this.
into the capital budget, because then we will not be incurring more debt, we'll
Right.
actually be saving.
Yeah.
So there's some point
Yeah.
in here, I mean, that's assuming that, yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, there's things that we want to be thinking about. I mean, our sidewalks, our stormwater, and things like that.
To save
Also,
for. Yep.
after this process is over, we're going to start talking about the water and the wastewater piece of it, and sort of developing a capital plan for those as well.
Okay, maybe we move to the next
All right,
page. So
so-
these show individual departments.
And so this next one is the beginning of the capital improvement plan. And so it takes the current fiscal year that you're in and then 5 years out after that. And so the current fiscal year, we're in FY18, and then you go 5 years from that point.
And you can visually see where certain, particularly the equipment, where it gets paid for and it drops off. Like if we go into the equipment, that first Mack truck, 2014, you see drops off. Well, maybe it's not that one. It's the one below,
The Freightliner.
the Freightliner
Freightliner.
drops off in fiscal year 2020, 2022. And I just want to point out, I mean, and it's up to the board on what we do, but we can see that first dump truck, 2010, is due to be replaced in fiscal year 2020. And, you know, I always sort of say, is there an opportunity to delay that a year? If we were able to delay that a year, perhaps that's when we could be putting some of that money toward into the capital plan to borrow less.
Right.
And actually, it was slated to be delayed, to be replaced in this FY19.
Yeah. Right.
And Mike said, you know, this is one that's actually been working really well. I'm not seeing the maintenance issues. And so he's planning to keep it longer. He actually pushed it out a little further. I'm just safely putting it into FY20 because things can change.
Sure. No,
Did we purchase it new in 2010? Or is that just the model year of it?
Oh, no.
It would have been
Yeah.
purchased
We
new.
all buy new ones.
We only
Yeah.
had new ones, okay.
And I had a question about just a little bit farther about the paving. When I was wondering where in the budget it shows when we might expect to see another grant from the state.
I'm trying to think year we're on right now. I think
Is
there's
it every 3 years?
I think it's every 3 years, and I think there was one in this, is it the current year or FY19 that he's applying for?
Okay,
Yeah.
so potentially we should see something in the
Yeah, in
next
the
year or
future,
two.
right.
And then how would we apply that?
So you don't take that away from it. That just gives you more capacity to do more paving. So you don't take, if we get a grant for 125,000, you don't remove 125,000 from our funds. We still keep the same funds that we're applying, and that's extra capacity to do additional paving or.
I mean,
So
I
we
think
might
in
do
the
it this
past,
year, but
yeah,
then in the following year, it would be helping us get a little bit ahead.
Right,
So we
yeah.
could even,
potentially. I mean,
potentially
Yeah.
we could reduce it the following year.
Right.
But we probably would want to,
Yeah.
keep up
Okay.
with it. And,
Just has to be used towards the paving, yeah.
or if we had that situation, we could raise the 250, if we got 125, we could put 150 or whatever, the 125 in, put 125 in the reserve,
Right.
yeah,
and then,
right, and sort
Yeah.
of spread it out.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, again, not to harp on it, but if we go down to the very bottom, for the police budget, sorry, it does show, although we've replaced 2 this year, the plan is in fiscal year 2021, potentially 2 more. And I think, again, in my opinion, depending on the condition of those vehicles, this is just sort of a plan. It isn't fixed in stone. We would make those decisions as we get closer.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the vehicles that we just purchased
No.
because it'd be the other ones that,
The older ones.
yeah, the older ones, right? Yeah.
it might be, I was gonna say, it might be good to put those other vehicles on here.
They are.
They
They're just
are,
on the
just
next-
on the
yeah,
next
on the
page.
next
Oh,
page.
there it is.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah,
was looking for the same thing. It's like,
Right.
yeah, 4.
Because we have all the dump trucks on here.
right, yes. We're exclusive in who we, yeah. No, they're on there.
And then the rest of the budget shows fire, including the rescue pumper, which was a big dollar item, but
Right.
it took the place of 2 other potential replacements. So that's a big one on our debt load through fiscal year 2022. Sounds kind of funny to say years of those.
I know.
And the buildings, it might be interesting just to take a look a little bit farther down, buildings and facilities.
Yeah.
It's not big dollar items, but there's a few items in there that are capital savings
Yeah.
for potential items.
So I did want to talk to you about this one, and I updated the memo for you guys this afternoon. So changes that I had made since the last version that I sent you. And we talked a little bit about, we've removed the funding for the sidewalks for FY19, which was, I think was supposed to be $5,000. We'd removed that. We'd retained the 2,500 for Lot 1 and 2,500 for the town hall upgrades. What I did last night, and this is up to you guys, see what you think about it. I swapped the Lot 1 funding for back to sidewalks, so I put 2,500 into sidewalks, removed the Lot 1 funding for right now. That's something for you guys to discuss, see what you think. I know the sidewalks, we, certainly have issues that need to be resolved with the existing sidewalks, as well as be thinking about, when we want to expand the network. And some of that money would be towards grant, a match for grants, as well as any of the significant repair, replacement of existing sidewalk.
Don't we want to still keep stormwater as a line item?
Yeah, stormwater is still, it's in there, it's
Where?
down, it's, I think.
Oh, I
yours
see.
is
It's got
general
its own
government. It's under-
category.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
okay.
and
Sorry.
in the
It's gonna
general
take a
fund,
while
it's
to
under the
remember
town
what-
administrator
Yes, okay.
one, yeah, for now, it's
Okay,
just as a
yep.
placeholder.
But it has its own line in the
Yes.
capital.
Yep.
Yeah.
It does.
So
And
I would go along with that. It seems, although lot one would be nice to develop.
Right, absolutely.
It sort of goes along with my hope this year of like trying to maintain what we have.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before we tackle on more things. And the same with, the town hall upgrades, just having a little bit there if the town hall needs some upgrades.
It does, yep.
Then
It does.
maintaining the building.
And then I also added some $1,000 into the tree planting and maintenance line, which was in the capital. There was money in the capital reserves, but I think just over 3,200 and change. Paul Wizarek, our tree warden, had proposed his budget for FY19, and it was $3,200, but it gave a very small little bit of wiggle room. And his, wish was to give a little more cushion for some and those were just the projects the trees that he knew that needed to be planted or replaced. This could be something that could go into the general fund line item, or it stays in the capital and we just keep adding to it each year.
Even though we might spend it and.
We
That's-
might,
yeah.
yes, but if we start adding to it incrementally,
Yeah.
then it at least, so it's one that could go either way.
I just as soon see it stay there.
Yeah.
And-
That's where it
yeah.
started.
Yeah.
That's where it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it
Yeah.
was. So
Okay.
I didn't make any change with that regard. I just added the $1,000.
And
It's almost like things in the capital budget should be things that are, well, no, I was gonna say, that are in the Gatsby thing. All of our assets that we're supposed to list when we get audited, but we
Yeah.
don't have to list all the shovels.
Generally, in the capital budget, it's anything that's has a a total value or price of 5,000 or greater.
Right, but
Yeah.
so even though we're only putting in the tree budget for $1,000, the value of all of our street trees
Right.
is far greater than
Absolutely, and that's
$5,000.
the reason why
Yeah.
it lives there. Yeah.
and by spending a couple thousand each year, the value is
Right.
there. Yeah.
And the distinction from capital budget to debt service is anything that has a repayment of greater than 5 years goes into debt service. 5 years and under is within the capital.
Okay. I did have a question about in the equipment, the pickup. I was like, why is it so cheap?
Because
But it was because it's only a portion.
it's a portion of the water wastewater. It's just a portion of that. So the bulk of it is in the enterprise fund for water
Right.
wastewater, and then a
the
portion goes
fact
to
that it is
buildings and
u-
facilities.
It is
because-
used for the town too, along with water,
Right.
wastewater, the cost of
And
share.
30% of the salary of the utilities director is applied to buildings and facilities, because there's work and so part of it's 30% of that salary goes to buildings and facilities in the general.
All right, and then there's a description of each item, which is very helpful. There's a couple items there that have kind of disappeared over time, I thought, but I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
The narrative.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
narrative.
it's great.
And again, this is just sort of this isn't making any big changes to what we had in place. This is a starting point to go through FY19, but I think really right after this budget season, we finalize this. I think it's time to start really looking at our capital plan and thinking about the big picture and looking out to see what we need to be thinking about, so we're not just reactive, having larger increases per year.
And of course, the process of doing that includes department heads.
Absolutely.
At your level?
It
like, in your
includes
conversations?
department heads, it can include the planning commission. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
bigger discussion and a discussion for the public too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
To
absolutely.
really think about what our priorities are and where we want to put our focus in.
Yeah, because I think we even asked the library
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the cemetery.
Yeah.
So-
I agree.
All right, unless there's more questions, I think we need a motion to accept the capital budget and capital improvement plan
Yes.
as presented.
I will make a motion to accept the capital budget and the capital improvement plan. Capital budget for fiscal year 19. Should I put that in there?
Yeah.
And then the capital improvement
And
plan
a
that goes
capital
out.
improvement plan that goes out for 5 years.
I'll second that for you. I don't see any emails either, so that's, You know,
Questions you
yeah.
need from people?
yeah, I don't see anything.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. So none opposed, that's passed. Nice job, well
All right.
done. Next item is, just the general fund budget,
Yeah.
right, and capital transfers that are noted on there.
Associated, yeah.
And I think you highlighted in yellow a few changes from last week.
I did. There's a memo that I also included in your packet, and like I said, I added to that memo later this afternoon. And it kind of just, I'm trying to get things sort of ready
That
for
was
the
this
town.
one here, yeah.
Yes, yep. For the town report, that's why I have a draft of the town meeting warning in there, so that once we finalize this, and especially, right after the 29th, that we're ready to get things sent off for the town report.
So it might be good just to summarize the memo.
Yep. So, as you look at the FY19 municipal budget, if the overall increase in expenditures is a 12.71% increase as it stands now. But if you look at what the major drivers of that increase is debt service. Debt service accounts for 56% of the increase. And another 14.6% above that is the vehicles that we've purchased. So their first payments begin in FY19. So as far as, just the general government portion of it, it's a small increase. It's the biggest drivers are things that we knew about. I mean, last year when the bond vote passed, that was put in the memo then that I think the highway garage debt service would potentially increase by a 3.5 cent on the tax rate. And with our reappraisal, the townwide reappraisal, it used to be that a penny on the tax rate was equivalent to like between 50 and 52,000. With the reappraisal, it's now about a 60,000 per penny. So the projected non-property tax revenue is 614,200, and so that leaves $3,239,849 to be raised by property taxes. Because this is a challenging year, we started really looking in detail to everything. Been in communication with our auditors to see where our fund balance is looking. In the past, we used to apply some fund balance to offset the tax rate.
I think
However,
up to 250,000, I think, at one time.
yeah, it's a percentage of what your overall, budget is. And so in the last 2 to 3 years, we've been using it every year to a point of, I think we had over $1 million and something that we'd offset the tax rate by over the years of applying fund balance. And so their fund balance was low enough that we didn't have anything to apply in the last 2 to 3 years. We're back at a pretty healthy fund balance now. I have proposed 120,000 of unassigned fund balance. I think it's a very conservative figure, but I'd rather be err on the side of conservative rather than overestimate what we have. So, like I said, the 120,000 would be approximately a 2-cent decrease on the tax rate.
So how much isn't left in the fund balance? Or the auditors
there a
aren't
percentage?
finished?
They are close. It was, I think we were between 400 and 500,000 in fund balance, somewhere in the 400,000 range. And we've got to get, confirmation on that.
Yeah,
But
okay.
we felt that the 120,000 was a very safe. I mean, each town has a different philosophy on it, but it's the current taxpayers that have, the tax rate has been set and paid into it. So if I think our select board in the past has sort of had that policy to, you know, try to keep the 250,000 or the percentage of it in there. And if we have extra, then we give it back to the voters in some way, whether we're buying down the tax rate or we're applying it to debt some sort of purchase that the town was about to make. So, there's different ways of doing it, but it's,
And I mean, there's even the question of like, why keep the fund balance at all? Because we can borrow money
Right.
if we needed to, but I mean, I'm comfortable with the way we've been doing it, but.
it's kind of like an emergency fund that you have
Yeah.
in your household. If something
Yeah.
unexpected,
Or- yeah.
unanticipated expenses happen, you have that.
Yeah.
A
But,
bad winter, and I think we've been a little bit understaffed.
Yes,
So
that's
therefore
one of
our
the
budget,
contributors to it.
That contributes to it,
Yeah.
so, we have to, that's not our goal.
right,
And this year, we've been a little bit understaffed, and so next year, we could expect, we hopefully won't be, and,
right.
that will reduce the,
Because,
fund
I mean,
balance.
part of having too big a fund balance says, well, we're not doing very good budgeting on the
Right.
front end.
Absolutely.
But I think we definitely know where that has come from.
yes.
Right.
I would say that's a good
That's a
piece
big
of it.
piece of it, yeah, absolutely.
And so it looks like if we were to apply 120, then the resulting tax increase would be about 9.2% roughly.
Yeah, so we would have, so on the tax rate part of it, it would be about a 4.5 cent increase over last year, or the FY18.
So even though it's a 12% increase in the budget, it's only a 4.5 cent increase in the rate.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
So and just so you know, I was like, is it 12%? And I did my own little calculation. It's 12. Good job.
12.71.
Yeah,
12.71.
12.71, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the chart down below,
yeah,
which has the impact to property owners, the actual impact, that's assuming with the fund balance applied, right?
right,
Okay.
absolutely. So, and again, this is based on an estimated grand list. I did a very conservative one
Yes,
with, typically it's been around 1.01% or so as average in the last 7 years. However, in talking with Marie and based on our situation right now, this one assumes a 0.45% increase. So very low
And so
increase.
you're feeling just, because I circled that, I said, geez,
Right.
if our average is, 1%, saying we're at 0.5%
Yeah.
seems pretty conservative. So you're saying it seems conservative, but not overly conservative?
I don't think it's overly conservative. I mean, based on, what our water capacity and all, sewer, all the issues that we are having right now, actually talking with other town managers in surrounding towns, they're also seeing very little grand list growth. And so I've seen 0.5%, hearing from other towns. So I don't think this is, I think it's better to err on the, safe side, conservative side, but I don't, we won't know. These are all estimates at this point.
Yes.
It's really hard to gauge it. So once they lodge the grand list,
And that's in
that's when we know.
June, right?
Yeah, so we know that in June and set the tax rate after that information is, and so June, July timeframe.
And just to be clear, so come at end of June is when we set the tax rate.
Well, usually we don't do it until July or
July.
August.
Okay, July or
yes.
August.
Well, July, because they
There's
like
more
to send them
information
out
that they're
in-
waiting for, yeah,
Yeah.
like last year they were waiting for more information because of
And
the
if
appraisal.
the grand list was to grow a lot more or a lot less, potentially the tax rate would change.
Yes.
Yeah, this does not lock us into a
Right.
tax rate. It doesn't lock us into
Just-
applying
right,
a set amount of unassigned fund balance. This is just the best estimate that we can do at this
Yep.
point.
And-
Things can change.
And this authorizes the select board to spend that amount of money.
Once we get voter approval.
Right.
Once
once
you
we
get
get
voter
voter
approval,
approval, right.
correct.
All right.
On the
That's
first
great.
numbers that you have at the very top, you just didn't add the other zeros.
Where are we at?
The very first sentence where it's $3,850,049. Right. The next one is 400
That's the increase over
Right.
last year. Yeah.
But either you shouldn't put so it's $434,742.
Yeah,
Right.
Or-
Oh, you know what I was getting?
12.71%.
I was getting confused by the comma.
yeah. So
So that either
Okay.
there should be zeros after it or
.00 or
point, yeah, point
Okay.
zero, or, yeah. But it's really a comma for the grammar portion of the
Yeah.
sentence.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
But I kept
You're
looking at those.
expecting more digits.
Yes, I was expecting more digits, and I
Right.
kept looking at it and going, what's, yeah,
yeah, that's just acknowledging the increase
Yeah.
over last year's.
yeah.
So I highlighted some of the changes that were made to the previous version you saw. So under police dispatch, it's always been
saw
a
that.
challenge
Yeah.
to get dispatch numbers actually even before town meeting, but I keep poking. And so I finally did get, they're still in their budget process. They're not finalizing until next week either. But based on what information they have, they are proposing an increase per call. And so we increased it $4,500 to
Yeah.
reflect that.
do we want to go down just,
Yep.
go down through the detail and if there's any questions anyone has? I mean, you did do a good job of highlighting, here's what's changed from the previous time we looked at it. And I went through it and I don't think I really had any, well, I think you highlighted, yeah, things that have changed.
Yeah.
And I saw the dispatch number in there in the Hinesburg Community Police. And the guardrails got taken out from the
Right.
highway.
Yeah.
I had a question on the recreation, I guess not a question, just clarification. Lines 230, around 230. And this was the Recreation Department and committee proposed changes in the way mowing is going to happen. So I think that's reflected in here.
Yes.
Is that right?
It is. So, I believe, what she had originally proposed under rec facility maintenance was the wall contract, what they had additional to take on those fields, which would have been $6,000 for the fields. So they took that out of it, and they added, a couple thousand to 2 or 3,000 to the
salary.
salary line.
Yeah.
Yep, so we would be hiring a part-time temporary person to do the mowing of the fields.
And that salary line, if we hadn't done that, would have increased 3% anyways.
Right,
So all
Yeah.
the salary lines have increased
the 3%.
3%. I
And then
think
the
except for
FICA goes up accordingly.
except for I assume it's in the community police has gone up a bit more than that
Yep,
in our effort to do that catch up.
right,
But the remainder of the salaries generally across the board
are all, yep,
are
3% increase.
3%.
Yep,
And then I did have a question on the income side,
the
revenue.
Yep,
Guess it's not income. Sorry.
Well.
I'm used to saying that.
right,
And I didn't see, so we have in here the debt and the ongoing maintenance for the solar trackers, but shouldn't the income be shown, or the revenue shown as the credits on one of these
it's
lines?
shown, yep, if you go, let me just get back to, so under facilities income on line 37 is the title, and the next
Oh,
page
yeah.
is
Oh,
the
there it
trackers.
is. Yep,
So I
okay.
added that. This is going down too much.
I see it's right on the edge of a page change.
Oh, there it is. Oh, okay. Yep. So just need to correct that. it was fine before, something must have happened. But anyway, so I just equally offset the debt service on the expense side with the revenue side, because this is, the first year we'll have more information.
Yeah, I
in
think
future
we
years?
might be able to give a little more detail there, and because I've been looking at what the credits have been, and so I might apply it. And I'm not sure that 59 might be a little bit high.
Oh,
and
you're
it
in
would-
you haven't seen the latest version.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I had, I guess to back up a little bit, we looked at the solar tracker, I had the municipal bond bank give us an amortization schedule last August. And based on that is where the figures came in debt service for solar trackers. And I think the solar trackers was around 150 or 56,000 and change, and the highway garage was like 185,000. Solar tracker was looking a little high, and so I called them back on Friday afternoon, asked if they could redo that, just check the amortization schedule just to be sure. As we're doing this budget, I wanted to make sure I had accurate figures. It was completely different. Overall figures the same, but the distribution. So if you saw what I added to your Dropbox this afternoon, I replaced the previous version with the new version that has this 38,417 is the FY19
credits.
principal. Well, no, this is this is on the revenue side right now, but
Right.
that same figure is on the
Oh, I see,
expenditure side
I
under
see.
debt service.
Yeah.
And so for the principal and interest payments for FY19, total 38,417 for the trackers. And then the highway garage increased to, I think, maybe 201,000.
I see. Okay.
Same bottom line, had no impact on our budget. It's just getting the right
Yeah.
figures.
So I think the previous year under those trackers, we can show the credits that we did receive,
Okay. And you
which
thought,
was like 15,000 roughly, because it was just a partial, not quite a half a year or something.
so 15,000,
Whatever those credits that we already received, she just received them.
okay. But above the 38,
No,
What line are you
no,
on?
that would be, it would not be for fiscal year 19, it would be
440.
in this year's.
oh,
Yeah, so we did receive credits, because we've been
Okay.
paying.
yeah, this line wasn't on here.
Right,
In
right.
the current year's budget, I added the tracker revenue to show there was revenue to offset the
Right.
expense.
So I think, if it's okay, and I've been talking with Missy, I think in fiscal year 18, it will show some. I don't know if we didn't have any bond payments though.
There was just interest.
Right, and then there'll be, we can come up with an estimate for what it will be for next year, for fiscal year 19. And, it should be close to what the thing is. It might be slightly different, and it's always an estimate,
Uh-huh,
so.
okay. But, so you're saying, so what's shown on here is the actuals for FY17, not FY18, because we won't have those in until,
Oh, okay, that's right.
so I'm not sure
yes.
how we could show that. Yeah, you can't do,
Right.
Right,
Yep,
yep.
okay. All right. But I'll take a look at the latest one.
yeah, I mean, if
those
you have a
numbers.
better figure than just equally
Yeah.
offsetting,
Right.
let me know.
I might, I don't know.
Try to get us-
Again, it's kind of like farming. You don't really know. what
Right,
you're gonna get.
absolutely. I mean, these are best,
Yeah.
revenue side is completely best guess, I mean, all of it is, but,
And we can take a look at what the original estimates were too.
right.
They're probably pretty conservative.
I've spent a lot of time just trying to get as good of
No, I think you've done a good
information
job.
as we
Yeah.
have, can get, but some of it is really, it's a little unpredictable.
It's sort of like predicting how much salt you're going to use in a particular
Right.
year.
So
Right.
I have a question that I had asked you before, Renee, about the Conservation Commission JPREG's maintenance on line
Yes.
254.
Yep,
So, I read it in the minutes and I still wasn't really clear. They are asking for 1,800 for JPREG's maintenance, and I don't see why that wouldn't be covered by the 3,000 from Vermont Gas.
so I think you guys discussed that a little bit,
Yeah, it's in the minutes.
right.
And like I said, it was unclear from reading the minutes on what the conclusion was.
I think you talked about, we removed the 4,000 out of natural resources, thinking that if there was a need to expend money on that, that would be used out of the Vermont gas funds. The 3,000 is an annual payment for 10 years. The 1,000 was a one-time payment. But so that, those can certainly be used on anything. But where you guys landed when you had the discussion with Mike Bissonnette, the chair of the Conservation Commission, was utilizing the funds for the natural resources if there's a need for that, and the other areas as they needed. You kept the 1,800 in for JPRAG's maintenance, which is the mowing contract.
Should that be shown as revenue?
I
line item?
talked to Missy and Joan about that, and
It's almost like it's a reserve fund.
right, because it can only be used by the Conservation Commission.
And Mike thought that
For
it could only
JPRAG.
be used for JPRAGs. That's why I don't know that the wildlife tracking, that it could be used for that, because that would be townwide. That it wouldn't make sense just to do it for JPRAGs.
Yeah,
It'd be good to look at the language of what it is in the stipulation.
right.
Whether the 3,000 said to be used by the Conservation Commission for maintenance of JPRAG and the golden winged warbler. I mean, I
Right.
think that's what it was tied to.
The $1,000 was tied to the golden winged warbler habitat.
Yeah.
The 3,000 was originally when they were going to trench, and so
Yeah.
it was
Right.
is for that. Once they decided not to trench, they still said we're going to honor this. The
Right,
3,000,
but
you guys
what
can
we
use
should
it
really, yeah.
for the
see how it
Conservation
ended up.
Commission, right? I don't know that they put specific language after the decision was made to not trench. If there was any
I think
further,
it stayed the same.
right.
So it would have been for JPRAGs.
Right, but I think it was for the area that was for
Remediation. It was for
remediation for the areas
restoration,
of
but
the area
it's
that was going to
still-
be trenched.
Yeah, well, why don't we look at the
Yeah,
at
we
the
can certainly
stipulation.
do that.
Yeah.
Yep,
But-
absolutely.
But the advice was you can't really show it as revenue because it's not town revenue, it's focused just to JPRAG.
Right, so it can't,
But
because if it was shown in revenue here, it would go back into the general fund at
Yeah.
the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
And so that's the difference.
And I think what Renee is saying is, Mary Lee, is, regardless, it is money coming in, and if it can be applied toward some of their budget items, then, it should be.
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
So I think we really got to look at the language
Okay.
and
Yeah.
see. Because it's in here, if we leave the 1,800 in there, that doesn't mean we have to use it if we're able to apply some of the other money toward it.
Right. And then if it's not used, it goes back into the general fund at the end of the fiscal year. The 1,800,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
1,800, not,
But there should be.
We should know what they plan to do with it.
yeah.
Right, and I think if they're working on some kind of strategic plan,
Yeah.
then there's kind of a reserve fund set up with that $3,000 for them.
Yeah.
Because it'll be $30,000.
I think what I heard Mike say when he was here is they're, looking at the planning commission, the town plan, the things that were identified on the town plan for the Conservation Commission, and so they're trying to look at those and,
Right,
And
yeah, I mean,
plan for that.
it's imperative on them to, because I guess I would feel better about letting them come up with a plan that, that they have decided about how they want to spend it, than to just spend it on the operations.
Oh, I agree.
But at the same time, part of this mowing is in recognition of how they want to maintain the habitat for the golden winged warbler. So I think there's a balance there of how much mowing is attributable to that and how much is it for just the trails.
And coming up with a plan on
Right.
that habitat.
Right.
Because there may be some things
Well, I
the
think-
first couple of years to encourage it, and then maybe at that
Well-
point it might be maintenance.
No, I
it's-
think they did have a plan.
Yeah, the
They're
Audubon
different-
had already done the plan, yeah.
Yeah.
Different area was gonna be mowed
Right.
each year.
Right, okay.
But it's unclear from the mowing budget, I think, of how much of that was attributable to the trails and how much of it is to the warbler.
It's, they kept it the same as as the current fiscal
Right.
year, so there wasn't an increase. So that stayed, everything stayed level funded in their budget, except they decreased the natural resources from the current year.
Yeah.
Another thing I can point out is that's, even though it shows an increase, and I think we talked a little bit about this last time, the Lake Iroquois Association, we always do the 5,000.
Yep.
For whatever
Or
reason,
600.
it got mixed together with the 25,000 request for the milfoil. Oh, yeah. And so when voters voted on it, they voted on 30,000, but really 5,000 of that was the annual, so that's
Support
something, yeah,
of the
annual support.
organization.
So
Yeah.
it's really not a $5,000 increase on this budget. It's just, it appears that way because it was pulled out.
Yes.
It was somewhere
Yeah,
else.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so we can give a little explanation.
So that, yeah.
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 Yep.
And then you also had that correspondence with Lake Iroquois District.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there's email, I forwarded or I scanned that
Yeah.
email correspondence. So it sounds like it's not the town of Williston's road. It belongs to the municipality of the Lake Iroquois Recreation District that's by all the towns that are supporting. So in the past, Williston's just been doing it. But they said, you know what, we're not going to do it. They did come to Hinesburg, was it last year or the year before, asking for us to take it over. Being the situation we have with our highway department, there wasn't the capacity to do that, so we opted to put $1,400 additional beyond the $600 annual. Now the town of Williston's no longer going to do the work, so they're going to have to hire a contractor to do it. They're anticipating that's going to be a more expensive thing, so they'd like to keep that $1,400 until they have a better idea of what the costs are going to be. They're going to be putting that out to bid yet this winter, but for this time they're using the $1,400 as the number until they get better information. And so the $1,400 combined with the $600 was a $2,000.
Right, and there are homes though in that, so how do they participate?
So the district only maintains it from May, from when they open until whatever it is that they close, so just during that time. But the district doesn't maintain on beyond the beach access, so then the private residents maintain that section of the road. And in the wintertime, the residents maintain the entire, do all the plowing and do the cost for those.
All right,
So are we gonna include it as 6,000?
As 2,000.
2,000,
yeah.
yeah, it's in there now.
Yeah, this is the
Okay,
2,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any more questions?
I still think they've known about this for a year, and, they could have had this RFP and come to us with
The
the whole
actions.
recommendation of what's
Right.
gonna happen here
Yeah.
and how.
Jeff Davis would have come tonight. He's away, and Bruce Hoare would have come tonight,
Right,
but
it's-
he's also away.
They're not
Yep.
gonna give us
Right.
any more
Absolutely.
information than what they've been giving, and I guess,
Right.
it's how they choose to do it.
Okay,
So is there anything else that you would like? I'm going to be working on some visual representations of the budget, some different graphs, pie charts, and things like that to try to figure out what's the best way that would be easy to look at for someone rather than getting caught up with all the numbers.
I think I mentioned to Aaron, or maybe you, a week ago or so, after Doug Olafson's fabulous report from
Yes.
the police department, somewhat editorialized a little bit, but it was good, very good. And he had some graphs on there, a couple of pie charts. I thought the one that shows the impact to taxpayers of their entire impact, showing a piece that's the school, how much is the town.
Right.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
And then another pie chart that says, okay, here's how much the town budget is, and here's where it's going.
Right,
You know, as a pie chart, I thought was pretty good. You can say, okay,
yeah,
15% police, you know, and,
Right.
and so it's sort of, you look at it, how much is library, you know,
Yeah.
does it feel right? I thought those two were
Yeah.
good.
and we've had those in the town report in
Yeah.
the past. I actually talked to the king of pie charts and things himself this afternoon, and so just looking for ways to represent this in the easiest format I can, you know, for the town report, for town meeting, for the presentation. So he's excited and happy to work on that, but
Yeah.
yes,
You'll also be able to switch back to this, right? Because I bet there are going to be people who are going to want this
oh,
level of
absolutely,
detail.
absolutely. So, you know, there's the numbers and those are the things that people, but I
Well,
also
they'll
want to
have
have a
that in
different
their
way.
report too.
Oh,
so
well,
you'll be
that's
able to
right,
refer
that's
to it
right,
by
yeah.
line item.
Well, I think it's a great idea to do the pie charts.
Another thing that I would recommend, see what you guys think, but in the select board meetings between the time you guys pass this budget and town meeting day, it would be really good to do some sort of public hearings on the budget and have
Yeah.
Great idea.
informational questions, you know, so that the
You know,
people can ask questions, we can present the
maybe we
information.
should try to do like a Saturday. Sorry.
I'm just joking.
Well,
I
you
see
know,
more
I mean,
food coming.
nobody has come to the budget meetings at
Right,
night.
right.
So what is another means that we can ask, you know, get people if they want it?
Right.
Or
Well,
It would be nice to get some of those questions and concerns. I mean, obviously, that 12.71%
yeah.
increase in expenditures is going to get attention. And so we want to be able to explain that. It would be ideal to be able to get that information out to people before town meeting. So
Right.
Yeah.
that people come to town meeting feeling like they're informed, they have the answers to the questions that they need, and they're ready to.
Right. So back to the, so we'll go on that, back to the charts. I think in the past, we may have had a chart over the last 10 years of how much the budget has increased or not. I mean, we should put that in there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna show a big hit this year.
Yeah.
Compared to how it's been, but I think it's good to say, you know, that overall it's been pretty good, and this is the biggest year in many years.
well, it would be interesting to also not only show the percentage, but to show how many cents it actually translates out to. Because I mean, you see that word of that 12%, and it sounds like it's really a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But how?
Yeah.
So
So maybe both of just,
yeah,
you know, percentage change and then how
Right.
many pennies.
Pennies,
Yeah.
yeah.
Might be interesting.
and you could put that in. You know, in the year 2000, a penny raised on the tax rate raised, you know, 40,000, and
Right.
you know, so people get that, you know, that inflation is happening or that the grand
Right.
list is growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So back to the, maybe trying to, I think that would be fine to, you know, include in our agenda a section where we might talk about half the budget or
Yeah.
talk about expenditures and revenues on 2 different nights. We'll only have a couple of meetings.
Right.
Um,
yeah, there's
but
a lot.
then,
I thought we should have a meeting on Saturday.
yeah. Then I did
I gotta stop bringing food.
I did mention to Renee, or I think we mentioned it together, is potentially in our communication on Front Porch Forum, it might be good to
just
get
made a
something
note
out
about that.
there that maybe not yet, because we haven't quite, you know, we're not quite there, but next one we might say, hey, you know, here's what is, and here's some of the reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
Don't forget, town meeting is whenever it is, March something.
Right, that may be the
5th.
best
Yeah.
way to get it out.
That might get some buzz, but let's get the buzz out there
Right.
too,
Yeah, because
and have a chance to see what, you know.
yeah, I think it would be in the best interest of everybody to get information out there as much as we can. Now that you're close to the end of
Yeah.
this process and
Yeah.
just in preparation for town meeting. And I think it was helpful when I was able to show you live, once you pull out the debt service of the highway garage and the solar trackers, what impact that had. You know, so I think just separating things out, people have an understanding of really what the driver is, and the drivers are of that, is helpful as well. So. any other questions or things you guys need, information you're looking to have, you know, for the
So
town
we
report.
will vote on this next week when we vote the warnings. In a
Yes.
way, we're voting for the budget as proposed.
I mean, I'd like to have you guys in a pretty good, like, place by the time you leave here tonight, to know
Yes.
that this is,
I think-
I have clear direction of something that I need to do between now and Monday, or we're pretty much there, and I'm just gonna start getting the package together, ready.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are. I mean, Andrea, are you?
Yeah,
Yeah?
I think Renee's done a
Mary
great job.
Lee?
I think we've really looked at it, and
And-
department
and-
heads
yeah,
did good.
and I think Tom's, although he's not here, he's
Yeah, he said,
been on board with where we are. There weren't any other questions. I think we've picked it apart, and and I think, thinking about it is, you're saying we're trying to keep the same services we have today, and trying to make some investments. The town highway garage is an investment for 50 years,
at least.
and so
Yeah, and to offset those increases would have been a substantial cut to services.
Yeah.
You know, to bring it to a level fund or even anything close on that realm. We did, we're able to utilize some additional revenue sources that we hadn't in the past or hadn't been able to, so, and, using some unassigned fund balance to offset the increase.
And
was
while
helpful as well.
there are arguments one way or another, if Tom was here, and I know he said it before, and I have some agreement with him in that, we've got some constraints on development, and a little bit of development would help to increase the grand list and help offset. We're sized for some growth without having to increase the police department, highway department.
Right.
The town garage is sized for more growth, so
We built them for that.
we have
Right.
the infrastructure for a good amount of it anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not gonna be adding a lot more roads.
No,
Right.
Right,
right.
yeah. All right, should we move on? Next item on the agenda is just the draft the warning. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to look it over.
So I think I updated that one as well,
Oh, okay.
I believe.
You still had a line through that first one. 'cause
Well-
you were waiting to know what the number is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have, so all the highlighted figures are gonna either change or be adjusted based on how we end tonight, and then where we land on Monday. I do have lines through the articles that were just a one-time thing on last year, so those will be removed, Articles 11 through 13. So there aren't any additional articles that we've heard about or aware of. So I think
they
it's
were
gonna be
due
the
today,
basic,
right?
yeah, so I think it's just
Oh,
the
so
basic.
additional articles were due today, yep.
So I think it's just,
Don't expect to have any of those. So my suggestion, since the wording is so important on these, as soon as you think you have a draft, maybe get it out to us, because we don't, ideally, we don't want to be editing it next Monday.
right, yep.
But I've looked
I mean,
it
this is
over.
basically the
Yeah,
draft, it's just the
so-
highlighted things or numbers
Yep.
that are gonna change. The things that have lines through them in the bottom, the Articles
go
11 through
away.
13, they're
Okay,
gonna go
so
away. So the
I'll-
last article will be Article 11.
I think
to
we should just,
transact
yeah,
anyway.
and since it hasn't really changed much, if it was good enough for last year, it should be, the wording should be good enough.
Yeah. And
Good.
apparently there was a little snafu with the wording on the animal control ordinance. It looked like we were gonna
Yes.
be bitten.
Yes. Yeah, there was a lot.
So
It was quite
that won't
funny.
be on
That
here
was
anyway, so,
definitely the comic
yes.
relief.
So anyway, those three will go away. And did I change all the dates appropriately? Everything, I tried to make sure I look through. Next thing, I'll be having you guys look at, do some proofreading of some of the submissions that came in for the town report and kind of tie them in together with the departments that you focused on through the budget process.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Makes sense.
So that would be helpful to have other set of eyes. I mean, Ann's been doing that, but it's good to, yeah, I think once you start staring at them so long, your brain starts to correct text.
Yeah, you read
so-
it the way you want it.
Yes,
The way you
at
think it's.
what you think
yeah.
it's supposed to say.
Yeah.
So we'll have some of that for you to look at,
Helps to read it out loud when you read these.
right?
Okay. Next item on the agenda, 8, Town Administrator Report.
All right. We had our, the water main break that happened on Mechanicsville Road last week. It was a service line that, had the issue, but they did give people a heads up the day before to contact the school, some of the businesses to say, it's, this is a service line we're gonna be working on, but just, you never know, just a heads up. But they thought it was a small percentage that it would have impact anywhere else. Obviously, as we know, it ended up impacting. And so they kept trying to give information as they got it, but it was, they were trying to do a workaround to get everybody else back on, and that would work for a little bit, and then it would go away. So I think they started around noon, and by 3 o'clock, they had it back on for everybody, including the service line that they were originally working on. They're continuing to, I met with Eric today just to try to continue talking about what needs to be done. Again, I mentioned starting to sort of a capital budget, capital planning for that, because we have not only the wastewater plant, but then we have our old infrastructure that's underneath the ground for the water. So those are things to be thinking about. Prioritize where, if we were to replace something, what's the highest need? Where is the area that we need to identify? And then kind of set up 3 scenarios of, here's what we would do if we replaced it, full cost associated with it. Here's some sort of a middle of the road plan that would help. And here is just sort of maintaining as being more of a reactive approach of kind of fixing them as they come. And then get public feedback from the users of what scenario we go with. I mean, obviously, there's some significant expenses coming in that
Right.
thing across the board, from the wastewater to water. So it's something that we really need to start thinking about. And so I kind of charged him with getting on that now, as he's approaching the budget time for the water wastewater department. In May, that'll be coming to you guys, and with June, kind of finalizing that. So I, encourage him to start now and to really think about it.
And I could see where, as far as the water goes, I mean, obviously, you're not gonna replace every
Right.
pipe. But there might be a section here or there that, it's appropriate, or maybe adding another line connection between 2 that, and a few isolation valves, so that
Right.
if there are breaks, then you're able to work around them and you don't disrupt the whole town.
And they
So it might be
yeah.
a mix of, several things like that.
And they are doing that over, when these breaks have happened, they get down there, or they're spending the money on the contractor who's already down there. They are putting valves in where they can, depending on the type of pipe it is. They can do that,
Yeah.
but there's some types that they can't add a valve to.
The old wooden ones?
Older ones that, from like the 1940, which goes along 116. And here is some of the problem areas. So it's a discussion. I told him I'm targeting the February 19th meeting to kind of have that discussion with you guys, have Eric here, perhaps an engineer as well, to kind of look at the not only the wastewater and what that draft discharge permit means, but also look at the water side of it too, and start thinking and planning. So February 19th is where I have a placeholder in that meeting.
So
Is there, I'm thinking about our biggest users, and in particular the school.
Yep.
Would they benefit, would we benefit from having them in that?
Oh, yeah, I mean,
conversation?
I did talk to Eric. I think that's conversation that people need to be included with. I mean, at some point of it anyway. I mean,
Did you invite them to that meeting
we could,
specifically?
yeah, we could certainly. I think.
Yeah, but that's a question that I have, is like, do they shut the school down, like immediately when there's no water, or do they have like, okay, well, we think
Yeah.
it's only gonna be an hour?
Yeah.
I'm curious about the same question, is what is that process?
And
for-
what rules do they have? What's policy and what's rules?
Right.
It would be
Right.
good to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in the select board forum, I had put in here, we should have a discussion on, with Eric and the
mine too.
engineers on
Yeah.
water, wastewater. The draft permit could be topic 1 and topic 2, these
Right.
water breaks and maybe it's not so much a plan because they won't have it by
No.
then, but
Right.
and certainly, whether the school or any of the big users want to come, they're probably not going to get any answers.
Right.
They just might listen and.
Well, they might have some questions
They might
ahead
have
of
some
time.
questions,
That's-
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but certainly, it would be good, what comes out of this is a plan at some point
Right.
that says, here's how we're moving forward, and then that plan would be reflected in the budget for
Yeah.
July.
Yeah.
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 So that's perfect, yeah.
Right.
And then another group I'm thinking of is HBPA, to
Mm-hmm.
have them put a message out through their group of local businesses.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That would be another good one.
Another thing for that February 19th meeting, Eric feels like he may have the information he needs to have the allocation amount, what the allocable amount is. The water break that happened, that was on Richmond Road that they found, apparently has probably been there long before the water system was put in. So it's probably been leaking a long time.
How could it be there before the water system?
Before the new water system.
New water, the new water
the new
system.
water.
Yeah. We had water coming out of everywhere. Right?
That's how bad the
You
leaks
know?
are around here.
They just come out of the earth.
We do have a lot
It
of.
is a good question.
Right. So anyway, that one, between that one and the Mechanicsville Road one, all of a sudden they saw a rise in the thing, more significant than they have seen on after any other repair. So if he's going to base it on the information he has now and try to see where he can get, assuming there aren't any large breaks, but he feels like that he'll have that information and data by the February 19th meeting as well. So
Yeah.
that would be something that a lot of people will be interested in.
Okay, anything else in your,
I have, they've made an offer and it's been accepted for the assistant town administrator position. This was a challenging one. We had the good problem of having some really good applicants at the end, and but as we went through the process, the person that has accepted the position is specifically targeting municipal government as what her mission is. She graduated from the MPA program at UVM, and so she is slated to start on February 1st. And I'm going to get a more formal announcement. I asked her to sort of put together a little bio that I can share with folks, and I'm getting an email account set up for her. So I'll put an email out that'll include the select board and all the staff, probably early next week.
Great.
To
That
welcome
is
her.
good news.
Welcome her to the team.
Can her name be revealed?
Yep, Joy Dubin Grossman. She's from South Burlington, and has a lot of experience. She had a family business for a long time that she ran. Like I said, she's been graduated from the MPA program in 2016, is actively pursuing a career in municipal government, and she's also been highly involved in the Vermont City Marathon, organizing that as with the youth part and the regular part. So has a lot of experience thinking on the fly, making decisions, and I think will be a real asset to Hinesburg.
great,
So,
fantastic.
yeah.
Spell that for me, Renee, please.
What's that? Joy, Joy. Dubin, Dubin. Grossman, Grossman. Yeah.
It's a great first name.
Yeah. So there you go. So very excited to be able to share that news, and look forward to her starting February 1st, as long as we've gotten all this process, the town reports in, and then, because I want to make sure she gets the day she deserves to
Yeah.
to start here, so. Beyond that, I think those were the main pieces I had.
Okay, that's
Colors
great.
got chosen for the highway garage.
What's that?
The colors got.
Yes,
chosen.
they did.
Oh, wow.
They did.
That's big.
Yep, so the highway garage, the steel is supposed to arrive in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Once it arrives, it takes about 10 days to erect, and then we'll have the frame in place, and that's when you'll start seeing
That's when we'll
changes.
put some pictures.
Yeah, yeah. So,
And so the color, the painted siding.
Yeah, Mike chose pink.
Oh, perfect.
hot pink, hot pink, you know, Mike.
Yeah.
No.
We should have tricked him though.
Yeah, really.
So, anyway, that's coming
Okay.
along. It seems to be on time, on budget so
It's
far.
kind of a rusty red, it kind of, for some of the details, and a black band in places, and then, what's that ash called?
Ash gray.
Ash gray.
Yep.
Not exactly hot pink. No, no.
Some
But
sort of variety.
the red is really nice.
Yeah. No, I think it'll look quite sharp.
All right, select board forum.
Mine was what we just talked about with regards to the water and getting folks involved in that conversation. Sounds like we're well underway.
Yeah. Mary Lee, did you have anything? Andrea?
I had a little follow-up on the water. One of the comments that came in along with being disturbed about the brown water and the loss of the water was back to the billing system and being able to have more
Yes.
knowledge on the bill. And, I do look at my Green Mountain Power electric bill and
see how
kind of
you've
see and
tracked your usage.
track and I mean I like the idea. I mean, I think the reason that you do that is if you can create some kind of behavioral change. Just the idea of tracking it to see it. So the question is, will it give us more information that we can either individually make some changes, as individuals in our household and use less water, because that's a good, I mean, I think that's something that we would want to promote. But I don't know whether there's any kind of studies that have ever shown that there's a correlation, between how much water you use and the way that people can look at their electricity. And what's the break point where people are paying so much in water that there's actually the incentive to use less. And I think part of our water billing system is that we're paying a pretty high base rate to begin with, so that's not going away. And I think if you look at any of your utility bills, Vermont Gas
Base
or
rate's small.
the base rate, yes,
Or not for Vermont Gas.
no, it's not small, but the base rate for the water is pretty high.
Yeah.
And so you can't affect that.
But that could be changed.
Right,
And so
yes, and that's,
potentially-
yes.
potentially in this, I'll say, plan to improve the infrastructure of the water system, which could be replacing some piping, just like we said. Potentially, you could take some capital, improve our metering
Yes,
system, because I think some of it's not very good, so people are just charged a base rate, and we're not really able to see fluctuations. And,
Well, I
and
bet-
maybe if you're able to see those fluctuations, you'd be able to find and anticipate when you do have leaks, and maybe even where they are. When you can see, increases in one neighborhood have increased by 15 or 20%, then it's like, that
Right.
seems like it might be there, and the meters aren't accounting for it. So
well, I think the meters are, we are taking those meter readings. It's a question of whether we, as the town, are analyzing those individual meter readings.
yeah.
And then what we would really want to do is change the, change that ratio of, so if we were charging less for a base and people were paying for more, they would definitely look at their
Yeah,
bill.
I think so.
But then we run the risk of not covering all of our expenses
Right.
if we do that.
Everybody, and when everyone stops smoking,
right.
you don't get taxes to pay
Right.
for stop smoking
Right.
programs.
So in Southern California, which is a place that was very interested and still is in people using less water, they didn't have a setup like Green Mountain Power, where you could, maybe it's more difficult with water, because you could do, I could do stuff with the electric company that would lower my bill, but they did explain the tiers much better than we do. So it was much clearer what tier you were at and when you went over that tier. And every water bill had information on how to reduce your water.
Yeah, I don't think we have tiers. You pay us a base and then you pay for extra. And I think in my case, I just get paid the same. I pay the same amount because, I don't know, my meter's not quite right. And they said a number of people are like that. And
Yeah.
there isn't the ability to go out and get them all up and running. And maybe, that would be an investment. And so.
Right. But it would also require, well, somewhat all the users to be paying attention, to bring it to our attention that they're using, they don't think they're using more,
Right.
but their meter is showing
Yeah.
it. And I'm just wondering if there's some kind of computer program that can show
I'm
us
sure there
that
is. Yeah.
without
Highlight.
depending on the users to give us that
Yeah.
feedback.
I mean, again, that might be an investment, I'm sure,
right.
but I think that's out there, I'm sure. So, anything else for Select Board Forum? I wanted to acknowledge Wayne, his last name starts with
Basika?
Basika, efforts for setting up the pop-up work site, which I think, again, is going to happen at Vermont Smoke and Cure. It sounds like it was pretty successful. And I think, along with other businesses that are working to keep people employed here in Hinesburg, this is a way to keep mostly self-employed folks or people who can work remotely in Hinesburg, making that a better experience. And I think it's great for future business growth.
Yeah. And the next one is this Thursday, I think,
This
January
Thursday.
25th.
No, I've seen his name tons of times on Facebook for Front Porch Forum, but I don't know how to spell his last name.
Maceyka.
Okay. So thank you, Wayne, for that. Anything else? Next item is reviewing minutes from January 8th.
So again, I've got some sentences
So,
I didn't.
all right, so we'll have a
I'll
motion
make a motion for you.
to accept the minutes as amended. Second?
Second.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is under Unified Planning Work Program, project proposals, et cetera. The second paragraph, the last sentence. And to submit an application for the Green Mountain Bus Transit Ridership Pilot Program that we don't anticipate seeing a math.
Right.
I don't know what that means.
Match.
A match.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay.
This one, we don't expect will be is a required town match,
Okay,
for that.
good.
Local match or
a local match, right?
And then the other place was the Lake Iroquois Association. Tom said he is concerned that if the permit to apply pesticide for milfoil control is not granted and suction harvesting is done, period. Something else, Tom said he is concerned that it needs something else.
Oh, yeah.
Then
Yeah.
what's gonna happen?
Well, he was concerned that the money was not meant for suction harvesting.
Right.
It was only meant for the herbicide.
Then it needs a few more
Yes,
words.
Yeah, I'll clean that up.
Okay, thanks. Everything else looked great.
I had just a couple items. In the FY19 capital budget, on the second page, those bullets, I wasn't sure if the last bullet was really clear, but the decision was made to not fully fund the website upgrade in 1 year, but to do it over 2 years. So we reduced the amount to $3,000, expecting to spend another $3,000 to do the upgrade 1 year later.
So I created a line in the capital
Yeah.
for that.
And then on page 2, the last line in that last sentence, if going to be done, needs to be done as soon as possible. So,
If it's going to be.
yeah,
probably.
it just sounds kind of funny.
Is that page 2?
Page
Starts
2, the
with
last
Bill
line.
The very last
Oh,
sentence.
Bill
Yeah,
Marks.
yeah, under
Yeah.
Bill Marks.
And the last sentence, if going.
And then on page 3, the second paragraph, Phil said his opinion is that the proposed 360,000 square foot proposed is not appropriate. But I'd like to just make that clear. Phil said his opinion is that 360,000 square foot is not appropriate. Because I did say, in my opinion, it seems like a big oversized for the town. And then I noted the other things, which you captured right.
So
And,
just
and
take
then
out the proposed?
Yeah.
Is that
the
what you're
first
saying?
proposed, and then, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last sentence of my comments there encourages us, comma, as others have, comma, to get legal advice on the matter. So just clarifying that. And those are just my comments. Did you get those, Val?
Yep.
All right. Any other comments?
The word "why" is missing. So if we're looking on page 1, 2, discussion on motion by planning commission regarding the recommendation to reconsider interim zoning topic. Third paragraph starts, Aaron asked independent of interim zoning. That paragraph. Second sentence, Aaron followed by asking if the need is so great, why the planning commission can't get a proposal without the need for interim zoning. Or why can't, yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and none opposed. That motion passed.
Make a motion to approve the warrants as presented.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor of approving the warrants, which we have here, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. It's passed. And consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Well, sorry, before we do that, so
Yep.
so we will meet next week. On the agenda is primarily just the final
Finalizing.
budget, the warnings, I imagine, some of the normal stuff, but do we anticipate anything else?
The only other thing are, I don't know if I've talked to some of you about it, these glebe lands that we have. There's one that's for sale on Sherman Hollow Road, I believe, that in the deed is some of this old language from, back from the Church of England.
Church of England.
Yeah. And so they just need that removed so that they can finalize that.
Interesting.
They've been waiting for a while. They need to get that done. So I have that tentatively for the Jan. It's a very quick
200
formality.
plus
Some
years,
towns don't even
still.
bring this before the board, but because we don't have a policy one way or the other, I think I can get, I've asked the attorney just to write some sort of brief summary, just to kind of give you the background of what it is.
Yeah, so it's changing the language in the deed to,
It's just releasing the, I think it's doing a quit claim
okay.
on it, yeah.
And will it be doing it for all the properties or just ones that
Just
we
one
know
at a
about?
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
so some
Master
towns I've
bound.
looked, and they actually have a policy, so the town administrator can sign off, or town manager, in the future.
Consider that, yeah.
We can get the information, and then, obviously, after consulting with an attorney on it.
Yes.
But these are just, some leftover language that's been there forever. It doesn't have any impact on the town or any financial thing. I mean, now we have property taxes that bring the revenue in. This was, the Church of England was benefiting and getting money in, but that's no longer allowed, so it just, language is just
So-
is sitting there that needs to,
Okay.
I don't remember ever having
Yeah, I don't remember
dealt
one.
with this.
yeah, that's what I said.
So it must be a
Apparently,
very thorough attorney.
yes, I think that's what the
Wow.
comment was on,
During a title search?
yes, during
Yeah.
the title search, yeah.
Was there a topic on the agenda for this time or maybe next time for the road naming?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's right,
That's right.
that's right. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily, I don't think it has to happen. I put it in for the 29th. I think it probably
next
should because we need to get the certificate of highway mileage done too.
Yeah.
And so if we're adding that to, we need to get that taken care of.
So it doesn't
Okay.
have to happen tonight.
What's that? It does have, February, I can't remember what the actual date is for
But
the
not tonight.
certificate. No, not tonight,
Okay.
not
Good.
tonight.
That's all I was
Yep.
wondering.
So,
Oh, do we want to talk about the RFP and whether we want to move ahead with just talking to,
all right.
Oh, good.
for the trash?
Yeah.
I mean, I would be all right with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Talk
we've
to
put
them,
it out
get a
there
proposal.
and,
Yeah,
yeah.
we've
okay.
done a
And-
process, we've
And
opened it
I
up.
would be all right to have the town administrator
Mm-hmm.
accept the proposal. It's a
Okay.
temporary service.
Yeah.
Yeah,
9 months or so? Is that what it is? Something like that?
Maybe, yeah.
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 So I'd be all right with that.
Okay.
And obviously it'd be measured as it goes if it's not working out or
Right.
there's conflicts with the highway department or something, we
Yeah.
work through it.
Need a motion or anything for that?
Well,
I don't
you're-
think so.
Technically, you have adjourned.
no, I don't
Yeah,
think we
we didn't
voted,
vote.
he stopped us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice try though.
We knew that,
Yeah, I left.
but we haven't.
Have some cheese and crackers one time.
Okay,
All right.
so we're comfortable with that?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Val,
Val,
you are
you're
excused.
excused, yeah.
Okay.